Hello, hello, and welcome back. I forgot an earring. I'll be right back. Let's do this little guy. Very green theme today, but I didn't have a green earring downstairs. So, blue it is. He's a little sea creature. Anyway, hi. I am your favorite indie author, Julian Greystoke. Author of some books as this one, Adventurer Mage. Check it out. It's available right now on Amazon. Anyway, I am also a developmental editor and a writing coach kind of on the side, and that means I get to talk to a lot of authors. Plus, of course, I am on the internet, I'm on Threads, I'm on Blue Sky, I'm all of the places. Most of the places I stay away from Twitter, because it's evil. It's evil. I can feel, every time I go onto Twitter, I feel the evil. Anyway, one of the most common things that I see, both from people that I work with as well as just people online, is especially when writers are starting out, they get stuck. And I either see it where people are saying, I get to a certain point in every draft and then I stop. I've never finished a draft because I always get stuck. Or I'm only working on one project and I've been working on it for 5, 10, 15, 20 years and I haven't even gotten the chance to type the end yet. I am stuck. I am in a holding pattern. I just can't seem to get further. That is so common out there, which is one of the things I wanted to talk about, which is that this is a really common scenario that a lot of especially beginning authors find themselves in, which is comforting because you know that you're not alone and this thing that's happening to you isn't some weird, bizarre thing that no one's ever dealt with or pushed through before. But also it means that you're not special and you don't have a problem that is insurmountable, which can sometimes it can feel nice to be like, well, my problem is so different and so unique. No one else has ever had this problem before, and that's why I can't get past it. Unfortunately, that is not the territory we are in today, and so I asked my fellow authors on my YouTube channel, and I wrote down a bunch of things myself to potentially try to get you through that slump. Because if you are committed, if you actually want to finish the book, if you want to get to that coveted the end from wherever you're stuck at, whether it's in a single draft or a million drafts that you just keep starting new books but never finishing them, we are here with some advice, and if you're serious about dealing with that, then maybe give some of these things the good old college try. Really try them out and see if they work for you. You never know what might be the thing that really gets you going again. So I've got my notes here. I'm going to read what my viewers said when I asked them, what do you do to get out of your writing slump? What do you do when you're stuck? And then I'll read some of my suggestions, and then I'll read some of their suggestions. We'll just go back and forth. So this first one is kind of just doing my job for me because these are all things that I would advise trying. Because like I said, getting stuck is not a new phenomenon, and it happens to all of us, even authors like me with more experience who have finished many books. We can still get stuck. It's just we now have the tactics that we know to use to get ourselves out of being stuck. So this person, basically just doing my job for me, says that these are the things that they do to get unstuck. This is a very long comment, so I'm probably going to paraphrase it a little bit and split it up a little bit because it's a lot to read. The first one, though, is discipline. Because writing is an art, and we think about it more as a pleasurable activity than an obligation or a commitment, we tend to just give up the instant we have an obstacle that gets in the way of doing it. That is so true. So many people have this glorified idea of writing that it is always going to be special and blissful and flow perfectly, and that's what the experience is like for authors, when it's not. When you start out, it can feel like that. You are so excited about your new idea. You're thrilled about your characters and this world you've created. You're so hyped to tell the story, but eventually that is gonna wear off. That's the honeymoon period. It's gonna wear off. And discipline is where you're gonna be able to push through that. Because as I mentioned before, you're not unusual for getting stuck. You're not unusual for the shine to have worn off. Nobody sits down and enjoys every moment of the writing process. Nobody. If you're serious about getting it done, you have to train your mind to get into the right headspace to do it, even if you don't want to do it. It's the same advice PTs give about going to the gym. You're not always going to want to do it, so train yourself to do it regardless. Discipline is greater than motivation. 100% agree. And I'm sorry if that kind of ruins the mystique a little bit of writing, but for me and for a lot of authors, discipline is greater. Not that there will never be times again when you get excited about your writing, just to be clear. It's not all just horrible from here. The stuck moment might be horrible, but like you will find that joy again. The next tip from this person is to learn to live with the dry spells. If you want to preserve your writing as something you purely do as a pleasure activity, which is absolutely your right, then accept that your brain isn't always going to cooperate. Walk away, do something else. So basically, yes, if you are simply doing writing for only enjoyment, you have no notions about like being a published author or, getting those book deals or whatever, you're just doing it for fun and it's not fun, then you don't have to keep doing it. Or even if you are serious about being published, but you are also serious about only writing when it's fun, then you're probably going to have bigger gaps and you have to be okay with that. Their next piece of advice is to set realistic goals. You're struggling to get stuff down on the page, can't find the time between work, domestic chores, errands, and relationships. Figure out what you can do and do it. That may be a paragraph a day, maybe even as little as a sentence. Fun fact, I wrote this book and the upcoming sequel about an hour a day at work in my cleaning closet. I would get to work about half an hour early and sit there and crack out some words. And then on my lunch break, I would eat my lunch as fast as possible and get another half an hour of writing in for this book. And the sequel. Look at this thing. Don't knock the power of half an hour here and there. There's this notion that authors sit down and write for 5-6 hours at a time. That is unnecessary. You can get it done in the time that you have. Now, yes, you're going to have to train your brain. Yes, it's going to take a little while to get into that mode, but you can do it. And finally, they say, sometimes when you're lucky, the block is mostly about starting, and once we actually start putting down the words, the action itself gets our brains back to where they need to be. Not guaranteed, but something to keep in mind. Yes, if you have been avoiding your work because, I'm in a slump, I can't do it, I'm not in the right headspace, try just sit down with it and type a few words and see if maybe that just pushes you right back into the zone. Don't be afraid of your own book. It's yours. You're the boss of it. Go show it who's boss. This next person says to get out of a slump, I read what I've already written, or I write an entirely different part of the story, but then I wanted to write more. One does not have to write as linearly as it's supposed to be read. So yes, you can jump around. I can't. I'm not the sort of person who can jump around. And figuring yourself out and how you write is a really important factor in all of this, but I cannot jump around. Some people can though, and some people can jump to the scenes that they're more excited about and then weave them all together later, and that works for them. So maybe if you haven't thought of trying that, give that a shot. Also, reading back what you've already written can jumpstart you into writing the next section. However, I personally am going to add my caveat. I advise you not to edit as you're reading the part that you've already written, because like one of the number one things that I see bogging people down and getting them stuck is a pathological desire to keep re-editing the part that they already have. Now, I'm not saying you can't be successful editing as you go, but if you are getting entrenched in always just having to tweak and tweak and tweak your beginning, that's not getting you anywhere. That's kind of toxic. It's kind of ruining your time. You have to let go of that beginning and keep moving forward. You cannot make the beginning perfect until you have the whole thing. That's the hardest part to hear, isn't it? You cannot. You need all of the words in order to go back and edit the beginning to be as successful as it's going to be. And that kind of brings me to a couple of my notes here, my suggestions here, and that is, I'm gonna combine them. Figure out what your bad habits are and don't fall into them. You have to be aware of yourself. And also, lumping in with that, figure out if you need self-imposed rules. This might be annoying to hear as authors, but sometimes we have to make rules for ourselves. For example, a long time ago, I figured out that if I tried to draft multiple books at the same time, nothing was getting finished. That was one of my bad habits. If I allowed myself to follow shiny new idea syndrome, I was never going to finish books. So I made a rule. I made a rule for myself that I have followed to this day, only drafting one book at a time, Julian. I can edit and draft, but I cannot draft more than one book at a time. And you may be saying, oh, Julian, that crushes my creativity. I can't possibly make up rules for myself. My creativity is helped, not hindered, by making up rules for myself. So figure out what your bad habits are and make rules that you follow. I mean, we authors are always making stuff for ourselves all the time that we follow, especially if we're self-published. We make our own deadlines, we make our own publishing dates, and we follow those. So why not follow other self-imposed rules? So going along with what I was talking about before, if you know that every time that you get back to that book, all you want to do is re-edit your beginning, your new rule for yourself is, I can't do that anymore. If I stay with my book, which I'm going to do, I have to add more words onto it. I cannot keep tweaking that beginning. If it makes you feel better, keep a notebook open next to you so you can write down tweaks that you might want to make to the beginning later. But consider making yourself rules. It's not going to crush your creativity. It's actually going to help you stabilize your creativity, at least in my experience. And I'm not talking about rules like, oh, I have to write every day. I mean, you can make that rule if you want to, but it's your bad habits that you're trying to deal with. So if you know that you're a procrastinator and you want to make a rule where you write every day, even if it's for 15 minutes, then you follow that rule and that gets the words on the page. That's good for you. But everybody's got different bad habits and different things that are stalling them. So figure out what those are and make yourself rules. This person says, take a small break. In my experience, nothing good ever comes from trying to force the point forward. I go on a run usually. And that's where most of my ideas come to me, but that inspiration comes from a different place for everyone. And that's actually one of the notes that I have down here as well. For whatever reason, my brain and my feet are connected. And if my feet are moving, my brain is working. So many times when I've been stuck, going for a walk was a huge helper to me. But some people also say taking a shower was a big helper. Some place where you can minimize like distractions and outside things and really focus on thinking about your book and figuring out what might be causing the holdup, what is causing you to be stuck, and brainstorming with yourself about how to deal with it. Now, this person has kind of the opposite of what the above commenter said. So as I always mention, I'm not the god of writing and neither are any of these people. So whatever pieces of advice don't work for you, then you don't have to take them. We're just throwing a bunch of ideas at you so that you can maybe try some things that you haven't tried yet. If there are things here that you've already tried and you know they don't work, then try maybe some of the other suggestions. This person says, for me, the thing is to avoid getting stuck in the first place. I can only write when I've got an idea, usually a big picture of narratives with perhaps a few scene conceptions with more or less detail, none of it written down. This pushes/pulls me along and sometimes takes a while, lots of sitting around drinking coffee, to cull and refine idea candidates until I've got one with sufficient propulsion. But once I do, all I need to get going is a little reflection on the chosen motivating idea and I'm off. This process does mean that I have weeks, once or twice even months, of contemplation time between projects, but sitting around mulling over story ideas is fun, and the process hasn't failed me yet. I'll be honest, that's actually pretty similar to what I do before I start drafting. I spend a lot of time thinking about the story and going over different minutia that could happen in the story until I lock down some big picture elements that I want, and then I can get to work on the story, which in my experience does help me have fewer, not zero, but fewer slowdowns and hang-ups. This person says, kind of wild, but writing fanfic and posting it. I'm a perfectionist and I'm crippled by it. And my original works never go far. I keep restarting over and over and over again because I'm never happy with it and I keep getting different ideas. But at the start of this year, I forced myself to upload the first chapters of a fanfic I had casually been working on in December, and I got some readers. And so I felt forced to have some kind of schedule and upload chapters twice a month. Even when I felt stuck and absolutely did not want to write, I can force myself through it for the readers. I'm almost at 50K of uploaded content now, thanks for the stats AO3, and I can confidently say that I would never have gotten that far without the enthusiasm and discussions from my readers. It's weirdly addictive, and this is coming from a hermit who prefers to work alone. I guess it's just about having a kind of accountability system, and in the end, it's hard to have on your own. 100%, and I have used this strategy as well. Not only did I write this book half an hour a day, I posted it on Wattpad, and even though I only really had like one enthusiastic reader was all it took. Just knowing that there's somebody out there who wants to read your next chapter is an unbelievable motivator. Even if you're nervous to share it, I really encourage you to do it, because even just seeing that like one person had read that chapter in my analytics made me go, one person is reading, one person is excited. I need to keep writing this. And just like they said, if you're nervous to share, that's okay. Share anyway. Be brave, share anyway. You can even say on your thing, hey, I'm starting out and I'm newer and I'm really not looking for like criticism right now. Just read it and tell me if you enjoy. And people will be fine doing that. It's not like you're making them pay for it or asking for money to publish it someplace like Wattpad. So my next piece of advice is really just more like talking about writing in general, and that is to remember that writing is a skill and skills take practice. Like, let's say I wanted to pick up crocheting. I have never crocheted a single thing in my life. No one would expect me to have a perfect product with my first crocheted piece. Like, let's say I wanted to crochet a blanket. It's a big project with a lot of stitches, right? It's stitches in crocheting. They're called stitches. I don't even know, that's how little I know about crocheting. But it's a big project, and no one would expect me to get it right on my first try. But I want to do it because it's practice and it's going to give me the skills to make more complicated things down the line. Writing books is the same. There's just this idea that you just sit down at a keyboard and crack out a book and suddenly you're good. And that's not how it works. Even debut authors who say this is their first book, it's probably not their first thing ever that they've written. And if it is their first book that they've ever written, a lot of times you can tell. So keep practicing and don't feel bad if you're not perfect, because perfection is impossible. I know it's so hard to hear, like, don't feel bad if you're not perfect. Like, yeah, that's easier for you to say, Julian. And hey, I'm the one who doesn't reread my books once they're published, because I will still be wanting to fix them, and it's an act of torture for me to reread my books once I publish them. But I have to publish them at some point, because I understand that you cannot work on something forever if you ever want to get it out there. So I just hope that I'm growing in skill. I'm just hoping that every new book that I put out, my skill is increasing and my readers can see it. And readers are so happy for you if they can see your skill increasing. How many readers have we seen saying, I really liked this first book, but I want to see the author grow in the second book? So starting out being imperfect, not actually a problem. But my next piece of advice is very simple, and that is just try a different location. Maybe the spot that you're writing in is not comfortable enough, or it's too comfortable. This is something that I don't think a lot of people think about. Picking a spot to write that's too comfortable, that's too curated, that's too perfect. Do you want to know where I get my best words in? Sitting in a tiny cement cleaning closet perched on a bucket. Being physically uncomfortable actually helps me get some words out. And also, being in that space where there's nothing really to distract me except the hum of a nearby water softener really helps me focus in. So if you've curated this perfect writing space with everything you need right there and nothing out of place, you might need to go someplace a little bit more chaotic and less comfortable. My second place to write is just sitting on my couch. No preamble, no candles lit, no perfect writing atmosphere like people are always showing you on like TikTok. I assume I'm not on TikTok, or Instagram. Just plop your butt in the seat and write the words. Alternately, maybe you need to be more comfortable. Maybe the spot that you picked is not comfy enough and you're too distracted by being uncomfortable or distracted by family. Maybe you've got kids and they're being loud and you need to get somebody to watch the kids and go somewhere else. Physically take yourself away from there. Heck, go right in the car. Like, whatever it takes, maybe a swap of locations will be the thing that you need to really kick yourself into gear. And if you can't switch locations, like say you're a mom and you have to keep an eye on the kids, you can at least maybe try some earplugs or some headphones that will dampen the noise. Not so much as you can't hear what the kids are up to, but will take it down a few notches so that you can concentrate. This person says, changing media, like if I'm having trouble typing on the computer, it can help to switch over to the phone or even writing by hand. It's a change that can help my brain reset a little, and I tend to feel less pressure to get it right the first time like that because I know it has to be rewritten anyway. I'm not one of those people who can write on my phone, but I have heard of people writing entire novels on their phone. So yeah, trying a change of medium might be the way to go. Like maybe typing it on your laptop isn't for you and you need to write it out freehand. Or maybe you're getting stuck freehand and your brain really needs you to type it out on a laptop. This person says, I read. Either I read something from someone else and take a break, or I go back to the beginning of the draft and see what's happening so far to see if that lifts the block. Going to see what's happening so far. Very different from like extensively editing what's happened so far. Aggressively editing your beginning over and over again is one of the number one ways that I see people getting stuck. This person agrees, pretty much ditto for me. Often I'll pick up a tried and true favorite and read or reread a few pages, or I'll read over the earlier parts of my own story I have confidence in, and that usually helps me find my voice again. This person says, when I get stuck, I usually do one of three things. One, I write a placeholder note, usually an instruction with a sentence about the next part, something like, bridge this, Sally is arriving at a coffee shop, and move on, knowing I will come back to that scene later. Number two, work on a scene away from the main document, i.e. I'll try and write it out in a notebook or a separate document, because sometimes I need that physical separation to focus. That's a really good idea. And three, walk away from it for a day or two, because sometimes a block is my brain's way of saying I need a break. Also, very helpful. Taking a break, super, super important thing to do. Just make sure that your break doesn't turn into like a year, because then it can be even harder to get back into it. My next piece of advice is to try plotting more or less. This one's going to depend a lot on you, especially if you're starting out and you don't quite know where you fall exactly on that plotting, pantsing paradigm. Pantsers, by the way, it means we write by the seat of our pants. A lot of people call it discovery writing. I like calling it pantsing because I don't take myself too seriously. I'm a pantser, by the way. But if you're starting out especially and you're really struggling, maybe you've not plotted enough. Maybe you need to try plotting more. Maybe you need to really get a few more details in there before you can get back into your writing. Or, and I have seen this happen too, you've plotted too much. You're too obsessed with trying to force your story to follow exactly what you've already planned out, and it won't, because a lot of times in practice, you're going to have to be flexible even if you do plot. Throw the plot out the window for a little while and just see what happens. Or just at least give yourself permission to not have to follow the plot very rigidly and give your characters permission to go off script. My next piece of advice is throw a monster at your characters. I'm not kidding, this works for me. If I'm ever stuck and I don't know what's going to happen next, especially as a pantser, I throw a monster at my characters. Now I write fantasy, so it's pretty easy to get them attacked by something. But even if you're writing contemporary, throw in an outside element that shakes up your characters completely, that they weren't expecting. What could it possibly be? I don't know, but like just a monkey wrench straight into the machinery of what they were planning to be doing, of the scene that you were thinking it was going to be. Throw a monster at them. It really does shake the cobwebs loose and gets everybody and everything moving again. I have never regretted throwing a monster at my characters. This person says, I either kind of force myself to write something small, like a few sentences, which could make the block kind of disappear for a while, or I read through what I've already written, trying to find what made it fun in the first place. Sometimes I need to think about it. Is there some special reason that I'm stuck? Something that's not actually working in the story itself? Then I'll take a long walk, listen to music or something similar, and go over the plot, characters, etc. in my mind. They also add, oh, and sometimes I kind of feel like I have to get away from my own story in my own head, so either I do something else creative like drawing or I consume some other type of media. So yeah, if you're feeling creative but your story just isn't doing it for you, try drawing pictures of the characters, or even heck, drawing the scenes, or if that's not the kind of creativity you do, whatever other creative things you do, go give those a shot for a little while. And the final person doesn't have advice to give. They themselves are struggling with writer's block and are stuck. So I hope that perhaps they will come back and watch this video and see if any of the tips here from me or other people motivate them forward. But let's go back to a few more of my tips. I have the discipline one. I'm not going to reiterate it, but sometimes you just have to make yourself do it. I also have talk and brainstorm with other authors. Resist the urge to go to ChatGPT. We are an anti-generative AI channel here, so I'm sorry if you're one of those people who is hoping to get rich quick by having AI help you write your book. That's not the kind of writing that we do here. We are all about using our human meat brains to create the stories. And our human meat brains sometimes just need to communicate with other people. And if you don't have other writers to communicate with, well, first of all, you could become a patron of mine. On my Patreon, I do have a Discord where I have fellow writers all hanging out with me, chatting, talking about our process. Not only do you get to have a peek behind the curtain into my process, but also you have a sort of built-in little community there that can help potentially encourage you or just hold you accountable if that's something you want. Or, alternately, and these are just things that I can help you with, obviously, you can go other places for these things. You could start your own Discord. You wouldn't have to join mine, obviously. But also, I do offer author coaching sessions, which can just be as simple as you brainstorming at me for an hour and me throwing ideas back at you, and us just going back and forth about your story, which lots of people take advantage of my coaching sessions to do that, and I've been told that it's really helpful just to bounce ideas off of somebody who knows what they're doing and have ideas bounce back. And my last piece of advice is to cut yourself some slack, but not too much slack. I know that we can be perfectionists, and getting into a slump, we can just make it worse by every day that goes by that we don't write, feeling even worse and worse about not writing, which makes us want to not write. It can just go in a circle like that. And cutting yourself some slack and saying, you know what, I'm not in the headspace to write today, totally allowed and good and healthy. I don't write every day. Like, yeah, I often write every work day, but weekends, I seldom write on weekends. I only write on weekends if I'm feeling genuinely really enthusiastic about sitting down and writing. Otherwise, I'm gonna force myself to write on weekends. So cutting yourself some slack and letting yourself off the hook, especially if you have been trying to do anything really difficult, like writing every day or always churning out so many words, that sort of thing. Give yourself some grace and some slack for that. However, do not cut yourself too much slack. If you actually want to finish this book, if you are serious about getting this book out into the world, you can cut yourself too much slack. And you can cut yourself slack until it's been years since you've worked on the book. And you're still saying, well, I'm just not in the right headspace. It's okay. I just need a few more 7 to 10 business months to get back to my book. That's too much slack, in my opinion. If you're not just writing for fun, if you're serious about this, that's too much slack. Oh, obviously, too, if you're having life stuff happening, and that's one of the reasons for your block, like, say, somebody's got a serious illness, or you've just lost a beloved pet, that's the kind of slack that you 100% need to cut yourself. Going back into your writing when you're not emotionally prepared for it is not going to be terribly successful. However, if you are one of those people like me who, when I'm having big emotions, I want to be writing, then 100% use that. Milk those big emotions for all they're worth. So that was me and all of the people who answered my question. There may be more answers to this post because I asked it like yesterday and I usually allow more time to elapse, but I wanted to film this video today. So there may be more answers, and there will certainly also be more answers down in the doobly-doo of this video, because I always encourage people when I make an advice video to leave their own advice down below. So if you're looking for more advice, pop down there and see it. If you have advice to give, pop down there and give it. Let's keep the conversation going in the comments. But thanks so much everyone for watching me today. I hope that this video was at least a little bit helpful to you, and I will see you again next time with whatever it is I happen to be doing next time. Bye!
Too little short for a stormtrooper? Huh?
You want to know what's not short? My list of patrons. Patrons like Allison, Lisa, Jen, Tex, Moon Island, Zenith,
Corey, Ashley, Bunny, Nemo, Tactical Hot Dog, Haley History Nerd, Stephanie, Pixelizzy, Raya, Christina, Cameron, Lady Kragan, Lunar Muse, AJ, Marshy, Semi-Dark, GK, Annika, Jen, Gay Tutter, Tina, Black Nanga, SB Boots, Martha Baggins, July, Bird Anonymous, Sarah, Kat, 78 Kilograms of Shade, Ingrid, Roma, Haley, Sam, Kira, Mooney, Pudamancer, Kirsten, Bear, Jojo Bookish, Robin, Ursula, Caitlin, Jessica, KJ, Mufflier, Celia, Deborah, Swamp Goblin Waifu, Sophia, Merween, Kit, Hidden Glade, Light Julie, Patrick, Anne Sophie, Callison, Vampire Antihero, Shelby, Zaire, Jesper, Rennie, Scribbling Cat, Savvy, Jenny, and Amanda. As always, all of you, thanks so much for your continued support. You make the magic happen around here.